It all began with a forgotten envelope, one left behind on a diner table by a man who thought he had everything. Inside it lay not just money, but a secret powerful enough to shake an empire. Hours later, it ended up in the tiny hands of an 8-year-old black girl whose mother worked double shifts to keep the lights on. No one would have blamed her if she had kept it. No one would have even known. But as she looked up at her mother's tired face, she remembered the words she'd heard every night before bed. Baby, honesty will take you further than money ever will. What they did next would change their lives and a billionaire's heart forever. Because sometimes the smallest act of truth can expose the biggest kind of grace. Watch till the end. This one will stay with you. Wait a second. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this. The diner smelled of old coffee and rain-soaked pavement that day. Millie's place wasn't much, just a small roadside stop on the edge of Atlanta, but for Janice Miller it was life itself. She'd worked there for nearly a decade, balancing trays and dreams she could barely afford to keep. Her daughter, Lila, sat quietly in their usual corner booth, drawing pictures of stars and castles on napkins, waiting for her mama to finish the evening shift. At just 8 years old, Lila had a smile that could melt steel and eyes that noticed everything. She'd learned early what struggle looked like, how her mama stretched every dollar, how she skipped meals so Lila wouldn't have to. But Janice never complained. "We might be broke, baby," she'd always say, "but we're rich in what matters." That rainy afternoon, the diner was nearly empty when a man in a tailored gray suit walked in. Sharp, confident, and clearly out of place. He sat by the window, phone glued to his ear, barely touching his food. The staff whispered. Even the cook peeked out from the kitchen. His name, overheard from the call, was Gregory Hayes, the billionaire CEO of a global tech company. He paid in cash, left in a rush, and didn't notice the thick white envelope that slipped from his briefcase onto the vinyl seat. When the door closed, Lila spotted it. "Mama, he forgot something." Janice opened it, and her world stopped. Inside the envelope was a stack of $100 bills, a black card, and a folder stamped confidential. Janice's hands trembled. Her rent was overdue, the power bill unpaid, and her daughter's shoes had holes in them. That envelope could have changed everything. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then Lila, her small voice steady, whispered, "Mama, are we gonna keep it?" Janice looked into those big brown eyes, the same eyes she prayed would grow up seeing a kinder world. "No, baby. It isn't ours." That night, sleep wouldn't come. Outside, thunder rolled. Inside, guilt and temptation wrestled quietly in Janice's heart. But come morning, she made her choice. She and Lila caught an early bus to the luxury hotel where Mr. Hayes was staying. At the front desk, the receptionist's smile froze the moment she saw Janice's uniform and Lila's worn-out jacket. "Can I help you?" she asked, voice cool. "Yes," Janice said. "One of your guests left this behind." She placed the envelope on the counter. The woman's eyebrows arched. "Are you sure this belongs to him?" Lila frowned. "We found it under his seat." The receptionist glanced at another employee, smirking. "I'm afraid Mr. Hayes isn't available." "We'll handle it," something inside Janice snapped. She'd seen that look too many times, the kind that measured her worth by her skin. "No," she said firmly. "We'll return it to him ourselves." They left, boarded another bus, and rode all the way downtown to the skyscraper that bore Hayes's name in silver letters. The guards stopped them at the lobby. But when Janice showed the folder marked confidential, one of them called upstairs. Within minutes, an assistant arrived and led them to the top floor. When the elevator doors opened, Gregory Hayes was there, tall, impatient, mid-conversation on his phone. He turned, frowning, until he saw the envelope in Janice's hands. Then the color drained from his face. He tore open the envelope, eyes scanning the documents, breath shaky. They weren't just papers, they were acquisition files worth billions. A single missing signature could have tanked his company overnight. He looked up, stunned. "You found this?" Janice nodded. "My daughter did." Gregory knelt slightly, looking at Lila. "You gave it back?" She nodded shyly. Mama says we don't keep what's not ours. For the first time in years, the billionaire didn't know what to say. His empire had been built on numbers, deals, and power, but this child had something he didn't: peace of conscience. He felt small standing before them. He pulled out his wallet. "At least let me—" Janice cut him off. "No, sir. You keep your money." "We didn't do it for that." He hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Then what did you do it for?" Janice looked down at her daughter and whispered, "Because I want her to grow up proud of who she is." The silence that followed said more than words ever could. For a man who had everything, that moment was the first time he'd felt truly humbled. The next morning, Millie's place was surrounded by reporters. No one understood why until a black limousine stopped in front of the diner and Gregory Hayes himself stepped out, cameras flashing. He'd brought the media, not for publicity, but because he wanted the world to see something real. Standing beside Janice and little Lila, he told the story, the lost envelope, the honesty, the courage of a mother teaching her child right from wrong. He spoke about how success meant nothing without integrity, and how one small act of truth had reminded him what humanity still was. Then, he turned to Lila and handed her a golden envelope. Inside was a scholarship certificate, full tuition from elementary school through college. The crowd gasped. "This little girl reminded me," he said, his voice breaking. "That honesty isn't something you buy, it's something you're raised to believe in." Janice cried silently as the crowd applauded. But for her, the real victory wasn't on camera. It was in Lila's beaming face. The sparkle in her eyes that said she understood why her mama chose right over easy. Weeks later, Gregory launched the Lila Miller Integrity Scholarship Fund to help children from underprivileged backgrounds pursue education. Janice kept working at the diner, not because she needed to, but because that's who she was. Honest, grounded, proud, and every time Lila saw her name in the news, she'd whisper to her mama, "We did the right thing, didn't we?" Janice would smile and say, "Yes, baby." And that's something no one can ever take from us. So tell me, what would you have done if you found that envelope? Let me know in the comments, and tell me which country and city you're watching from. Take care.